everybody. This is Jerri Manthey with Hit the Ground Running with Jerri Manthey. I'm happy to say that I have my first guest today. Yay! A very famous podcaster and also now a very close friend. I'm very happy to say that. Jess Rothschild. She is doing a podcast called Hot Takes and Deep Dives. I had the pleasure of being on her podcast, which is where we initially met. So I am happy to say that she is here with me as my guest, my first guest. Yay, Jess, thank you for joining me.
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm nervous for this. I really don't know quite exactly what we're going to talk about, but I am here for the ride.
Oh my gosh. Well, I told you we were going to circle back around on the dating app thing because that is a very hot topic right now. But first, tell me a little bit, let's just share with people who haven't had the pleasure of listening to your podcast yet, what exactly Hot Takes and Deep Dives is all about.
Yeah, so my show centers on a lot of nostalgia-based reality TV. So I interview people like Jerri, a lot of people from the real world. And so I would say it's like 30% nostalgia-based reality TV, maybe like 25% like gay pop iconography, like New York City gay pop culture from like the 90s. So I just interviewed Isaac Mizrahi, who was like, he's relevant in like any circle, but like I have an interview with John Cameron Mitchell, who created Hedwig, and he's the star of Hedwig and the Angry Inch, which was a huge Broadway show made into a movie. Then there was a revival a few years ago. It's a total like cult. Do you know that show?
I've heard of it, but I've never actually seen it. But I do know who Isaac Mizrahi is, and I'm very excited to hear that podcast. Yes. And I mean, don't be shy either. You also had Rosie O'Donnell on your show.
Oh my God, yes. So then, so it runs the gamut. But the true bread and butter of it is actually like the Housewives, like Bravo / the Housewives. So it's kind of like a healthy mix of all of that. So I don't know. It's very much my voice, like and I used to be a writer and I used to write about a lot of this stuff, except for the Housewives, because I wasn't into the Housewives a decade ago. But it is very much what my writing used to be. I used to write for this independent website, and I feel like this is the audio version of my writing in a lot of ways.
Well, I already told you you're about ready to blow up and be super famous too, because the guests that you've had,
podcasters become famous.
Sure they do. Don't make me say his name. He's making $100 million off of Spotify right now. I'm not going to say he whose name I shall not speak out loud.
He who shall not be named.
I mean, the fact that you got Rosie O'Donnell, I was already totally impressed. And then I saw Isaac Mizrahi the other day on your promo, and I got very excited because he's an icon as well, and his fashion is ridiculous.
But more than his fashion, I mean, yes, he's a fashion designer. He's also a performer. Like, he does one-man shows, and that's really what his Yes, he performs at the Carlisle Hotel, at Joe's Pub in the city. He's like no longer doing like fashion. He's really like a cabaret star now.
Wow.
And he's written a memoir. Like, I would recommend his memoir to anybody. It is such a time capsule of New York City in the 90s. It's like everything that I am like endlessly fascinated by.
With Madonna, another Madonna connection.
Yes. We talked about Madonna, and listen, all roads lead to Madonna, Sandra Bernhard, and like Fire Island, which is like a gay, like,
I want to go to Fire Island with you. I hope that invite is still valid.
We'll see what I did.
I'm so excited. I would totally want to go. So when does that podcast drop? The one with Isaac?
It's out.
It is? Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, I know what I'm going to listen to as soon as I get done talking to you here.
Yeah.
So as you know, because you helped me work out a lot of the technical aspects of this podcasting world, and thank you again. I hit very quickly on my first real episode about dating apps and why they don't work. And I invited people to send me in audio files and stories. I've got a couple actually that we're going to listen to in a little bit. And it was a topic that I didn't drop it. I just was trying to figure out how exactly this whole podcast thing worked before I got you on here because I know we talked in person when you came to visit me here in Napa Valley. Um, yeah, that was a fun visit. Lots of
Yeah, that was a
wine was
total.
drank.
I mean, don't ask. I planned a trip to Palm Springs and I wound up in Napa Valley.
And of course, I have my glass of rosé again today. Did you grab something to drink as well while we
Listen,
chat?
my brain is full of alcohol, so don't worry about it. I'm dealing with some personal stuff, so
Oh, oh
I don't need
dear
to.
Lord. Well, whatever you don't
Actually,
or
I
do
drank
want to
that.
talk about.
Actually, I had a great glass of red wine last night, Sangiovese at Morandi, which is a great Italian restaurant, a staple in the West Village. And when you come to the city, we will definitely go to Morandi in the West Village.
Is that the place with the meatballs that my meatballs are very close to being like?
Yes.
Yeah, we had
Yes.
a meatball competition. Basically, I made meatballs for Jess, and she was going to tell me how they fared against these several meatballs she's had in New York. And in fact, I think you said you've had every meatball in New York at this point.
Pretty much.
I'm happy to say she said they
Yeah.
were great.
They were great. They were.
Yeah, I'm actually drinking Bouchaine Winery's rosé of Pinot Noir. It's quite delicious, very crisp and refreshing. Has a nice finish, and actually a very long finish for a rosé. It's very impressive. I like it. I recommend it. So yeah, I really wanted to touch base with you on this whole dating app situation because I know when you were here, several times I caught you swiping left and right while we were out wine tasting. So you are back on them despite all my warnings about how they don't work and what a mess they are. Um, I'm always curious when people get back on them, like, have you found that they've changed since the last time that you were on them? Are they
Well,
working? Did some magic happen? I'm unaware.
no, I wouldn't say that. Well, here's what I'll say. When you say dating apps, do you mean just meeting people online? Like define dating apps because back in the day, listen, every person for the most part that I have ever dated and like yeah, I mean, I've even met friends through, dating websites and such. Like a lot of times that's how like you just meet people and then like within a few seconds you can tell like, oh, this is like a friends thing. And then you legitimately have like a lifelong friend if it really
Which dating
clicks.
apps are you on?
Currently,
Yeah. Which ones are
currently, currently I'm on Hinge and Bumble, but I would not say that they're like really on fire right now. They were actually a lot more on fire, interestingly enough, back in the fall,
during the pandemic?
which is so weird to me.
Yeah, I heard there
Unless
was
I
a lot of
just
Zoom dates going on, which is really weird.
I didn't do I wasn't doing any of that. I was like, we're either doing this or we're not doing this. And I can get up like my goal is to meet as soon as humanly possible. Like I've met with a person literally I had one incident where we met within 2 hours of like
Wow.
making contact.
Well, I mean, I guess makes sense. You're
Well, what's the
you're in New
point of chatting
York.
forever?
Yeah, and you're in New York, so public transportation is great. You can just like step outside and jump in a cab and be somewhere. But like in
Totally.
LA, those it doesn't work like that. It takes a very long time. And in Napa Valley, forget about it. You're talking like hour-long drives.
Oh wow.
So yeah,
Yeah.
it required a lot of texting back and forth and then trying to get a vibe off of somebody based on how they responded in texts. And then if they were, good communicators and in their writing skills were good, then you would move on to sharing your actual personal phone number. And then you would go from there to having a conversation on the phone. And then at that point,
Jerri,
go meet somebody.
this is already way too much work. No, 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 no.
It was a ton of work. It
No,
was a complete distraction
that's
from
way
life.
too much work.
I
Like
agree.
I'm all about like let's meet. Like if there's like enough, like if you're sending a few messages back and forth, it's like and you're into the person that you're seeing in the photos, or really somewhat there's some level of interest, let's get in front of each other so that we're not wasting like hours of our life texting back. Like I'm not really about that. But
Yeah.
back in the day when I was in my my early 20s, all throughout my 20s, the people that I dated for the most part, I always met online, because before there were apps, there was like Match.com and OkCupid, which now I guess is still around as in app form, but the website,
Yeah.
like my longest relationship I met on OkCupid. Look, we used to write like emails, but eventually we met within a few exchanges.
Yeah. My
This is
last
just
husband,
faster, and there's
my last marriage was from Match.com. So not
but
really,
what's wrong with that? I
not
mean,
really a positive advertisement for that website, by the way. I am divorced
listen.
again, and that's fine. But yeah, I personally, I have not been doing a lot of podcasting the last couple of weeks because I met someone, and I'm very excited to see where it's going to go. And I met them in a very non-conventional sort of way. I hate social media. I think it's a time suck, and that it's a great tool for staying in touch with people you haven't seen in a long time, or it's also a great way just to, if you have to promo something or you have something going on in your life you want people to know about, that's, and share pictures or whatever. But I usually hate Facebook and how much time it takes from my life. But I was scrolling through like my friends' daily posts, and there's this little section that says people you should know or might know. And I was thumbing through there, and I saw this guy in there, and I was like, oh, he's pretty hot. And I sent him a private message, and I basically was like, hey, neighbor, I noticed that you post a lot of the same pictures as I do on Facebook. Like, we kept putting up pictures of wine and food and like the landscapes of Napa Valley, which are just gorgeous. And I said, okay, we have these similar interests. And because Facebook allows you to see those things, you get a little bit more insight than you would in a dating app. And he responded back. We went on a date, and now we're technically boyfriend and girlfriend.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know what? That's actually a really good question too. So when you're on dating apps, I'm talking Bumble, Tinder, the traditional dating
I have
apps,
to say,
right?
I really don't have much experience. Like, I'm no expert. Like, I have very, very little experience with the actual like swipe. I've very, very like
I
baby
don't,
step
you look kind of
experience.
professional at it when you were visiting me.
Well, I was demonstrating. I was moving through quickly, but like I had not,
Yeah,
it's been
no,
a short while.
it is a very shallow system for sure. It's all based on how you look, more or less, which I think is horrible. Um, but let's just say you're on a dating app and you meet somebody in person, you have a connection, you start dating, you decide to be exclusive with that person. You say, okay, now you're my boyfriend, I'm your girlfriend. Um, at what point do you delete the dating apps?
When you become exclusive.
Yes, I totally agree with that. Yeah. So I think that's another one of the problems with those dating apps, is that people are afraid to delete their account because they've been addicted to this process for so long that the idea of deleting that app off their phone literally causes them to have the same reaction as an alcoholic who doesn't have a drink.
I found it so interesting when you were saying, maybe it was like your first episode, how they mimic slot machines in
Yes.
Vegas, and like it's like the dopamine rush of like hoping you get a match. I found that to be interesting, what you said.
Yeah, it's very true. The developers of those dating apps don't really want you to find your match. They want you to keep looking on these apps because that's how you see all these advertisements pop up. So the more advertisements you see, the
Mhm.
more money they make. It's a monetized situation now that benefits people who create the dating apps and not so much the people who are on the apps. I have heard from my I have a lot of polyamorous friends, which I think that's a whole podcast in itself, um, who tell me that these dating apps are the perfect vehicle for polyamorous relationships because, they're just looking to hook up basically.
Mhm.
And that's what they're basically set up to do effectively, which is just create a place where you can just hook up with people for one night stands or, you know, have a friend with benefits. So,
Right.
um, let's see. I know I wanted to, so do you have any bad experiences that came from the dating apps at all?
I don't know. I don't have any bad experiences, but I have a very wild experience that
Ooh,
happened.
saucy.
Um, I can or not a wild, but and it's actually not that.
Oh,
Um,
just tell what is it? What happened?
I'll give you like the very streamlined. I'll give you like the bullet points.
Okay.
So okay, so actually, a few years ago, you're gonna have to focus to pay attention. Okay, Jerri, can you like focus on the story?
Do I need a drink for this?
This
I
is like
think I
Miss
might.
ADD over here.
Who, me?
Yeah.
I don't
Okay,
even believe in
so
AD.
so a few summers ago, I was at a dinner party out east, out in the Hamptons, and I I met this chick at a group dinner party, and we had like interesting conversation. And I was in a relationship at that time, and I believe actually she was dating the person whose house we were at. Like I had no idea why we were there. It was like friends of friends. Like I knew nobody at this thing. But I wound up talking to this woman the whole night, and there was like a hint of an interest or attraction, but it was like I moved on with my life. It was just like, who was that? Like who was that? And and I
There was a
think,
spark.
well, I think just on my end. I am curious, like, can there be a spark just on one end? That's a topic for another time. But so anyway, so cut to, a lot of things happened in my life, and I wound up single. And it took a very long time for me to even entertain the idea of dating. I thought it was going to take years for me to even just to heal the heartache that I was going through, especially through the pandemic. And I went through the whole summer. I had a great summer. And then it was Labor Day weekend, this past Labor Day weekend. And
It's my birthday weekend.
yes, September 5th, right?
That's correct.
Virgo. And I was really bored. And I was like, I just want to know what's out there. Like it's like my life had been moving so fast. Like I was out east, I was with friends, and like that was the first weekend that I was bored. Like it had been weeks and months since I was bored. And I installed Bumble on my phone, and I like
Oh,
made a profile, and literally it was like swipe, swipe, like whatever way you swipe that you're not interested. It was like swipe, swipe,
left.
and then it was like not interested, not interested. And then it was like, boom, there she was.
No way.
This girl from like a summer and a half prior.
And was this a
And
New York local person as well?
she lives in Manhattan. Yeah.
That's a lot of people. I bet you have a lot of options out there.
Not really. Well, no, not really. Listen, when you're gay, it's a smaller pool. I think maybe with guys, there's tons of options, but like with women, it's a smaller, because most people, women, there are a lot more single guys out there, single gay guys out there than women, because girls tend to get into relationships, whereas guys, that's not maybe so much the default, or it takes a lot longer, whereas girls will just like move in like within 2 weeks. It's like a
Maybe
whole different scene. It's a whole different scene.
isn't that the whole lesbian joke?
Yes, yes, it is.
You guys move in like 2 weeks after
Well,
knowing each
women
other.
just like to be in relationships. It's the whole reason why, when it comes in straight relationships, it's the whole reason that it's the woman that is progressing the relationship. No guy wants to get married or have kids. Like it's very rare. It's the
Well,
woman
maybe you
who
need
is
to expand your age range, because as they get older, things change drastically, and the tables kind of turn at that point.
really. That's
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah.
So anyway, well, I'll speed the story up. So anyway, I I actually didn't even go through Bumble. I wound up like finding her on Instagram, and I was like, oh yeah, like that's her name. Like I like forgotten her name the minute I like left that party. So I was like, and I wound up reconnecting. I DM'd her. We went out a few days later, and it was amazing. And she would happen. She was basically a total flake. And I thought like I came home from that date, like, and I was like, I like was very emotional. I was like, I called my best friend. I was like, I think I just went on a date. And they're like, how was it? I'm like, it was amazing. It's actually this girl that I had met years ago, whatever.
Wait, you
And
didn't know that you were on a date?
no, I did, but in telling my friend, like I was sort of self-conscious about it. Like it was a lot after like a very long relationship. So like go on a first date again was like, I don't want to be doing. I mean, now we're getting into like an emotional area, but like it was something I didn't want to be doing.
Dating?
Yeah, no, I wanted to like be in my relationship. No, I
Oh,
wasn't
oh, so
looking to
you were
find.
still hurting.
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
see, that's I always tell people, don't ever start dating when you're still healing, because you're just going to attract people who like hurt people. Like it's a
Yes.
very predatory world. When you are vulnerable and weak and healing, you attract predators who then take advantage of you, and they can very easily, whereas normally you'd be like, hell no, you're not getting away with that.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
so important for people to heal first before they jump into even just dating,
Yeah.
and or even looking on dating apps. Just turn those things off. Heal.
I agree. I agree. Um, so yeah, I was one of those people who really wasn't like quite healed at the time. I mean,
Yeah.
I was going through the process. And so very long story short, I'll give you a little bit, I'll speed it up, but I wanted to give you the background about this girl. And so what winds up happening is she kind of flakes on me. Like we do go out a second time. And during that second time, she basically tells me that she's going on vacation with this girl she's been seeing that weekend. And I was like, oh, so you have a girlfriend. And it's like a girl who she met like probably the night before she met me, but it was just like
uh,
it's just, it was, they had been seeing each other like regularly. And I only saw this girl twice. And I was like, in my head, I was so disappointed. I'm thinking, why are you here with me? Like if I was that girl, I would be furious that the girl I'm about to go on vacation with is out with somebody else, like with like basically a glorified stranger. So I was like, all right, bye. Like have fun with your girlfriend. Like I was just like, you're a joke. So so a month later, so then I got off the apps. I was just like, well, that was fun. And like I
you never went out
reconnected
with
with,
anybody else? You didn't swipe
well, let me
right and
finish the damn
make any
story.
connections?
Let me make it. No, not after that. No, that was September. That was September. And I was like, well, that was interesting, but I think I'm done for a second.
Yeah.
Cut to the election. Now it's like November. Like we knew Biden, it was about to be official with Biden. Like the election day had already happened. And then there was like that week where there was this insane energy.
Oh,
I don't know what it was like by you, but there was this insane energy here in the city of
oh, it
just
was
like,
everywhere. We were all just we didn't know what was real or not, or what was going to happen, and
yeah,
this was the worst. I think that made the pandemic look like nothing, because that election process was
yeah,
more painful than coronavirus for a lot of
yeah,
people. Like that was awful.
yeah.
I don't ever want to
But
experience
there was a lot
that
of
again.
like excitement in the air. Like we knew it was about to be announced, like literally that day or that
Oh,
night. And so, and the weather was beautiful in New York that day. It was like the first weekend in November. It was like perfect. It was like just absolute like perfect New York City day.
I love New York.
And it was a Friday night. And for whatever reason, I reopened the app and I matched with this other woman, and it was the best texting chemistry I have ever had with anybody that I'm just meeting on an app.
Oh,
And we made plans. So this was like the Friday night. We made plans in the text for like Sunday. And but we're still texting because it was so, there was something about her that was so, I don't know, she was at my level in terms of like there was banter. That's what chemistry is. It's attraction plus chemistry. Like there's, I don't know, like the banter really has to be there.
yeah.
So
Communication.
we move over to texting. Like we're off of the app now, and this is the girl that I wound up going out with that night. Because I want to let somebody know like what their getting
what they're getting
into a
into.
little, what they're getting into.
I'm the same way too. I
Yeah.
think wear your heart on your sleeve, show people exactly what they're getting from the very beginning. And if
Yeah.
it doesn't work out, then you don't waste any time. But if it's something that they still find attractive when you show them exactly who you are, then it might be a
Yeah.
good match.
And it was a joke. It was like a flirtatious like joke. So I meet this girl and we actually have a really good time, but it's like more of a friends vibe. But an amazing person. And we had a lot of like crossed paths, a lot of like, doesn't matter, but we'd actually like been in the same room like a decade earlier. We knew a lot of, we
same
were just
people.
interesting, some interesting things in common. And so she's walking me sort of like to where like we're sort of going to part. And she's like, the original girl, by the way, I'm just going to say her name, doesn't fucking matter. The original girl, her name is Eve. I mean, I need to give context for this, so for people to follow. So she's like, blah, blah, blah. She's like, well, my friend Eve says, and I'm like, and I like stop in my tracks. They had met on the app back in the dark days of quarantine. So this isn't like an old friend. Like they had
Right.
met, although it would later turn out that they actually are quite close.
So
They actually
Eve
are
was
good
working the
friends.
dating apps during the quarantine to their
They both
fullest.
They both were. They both were. And so she's like, yeah, like we met on the app, but like she goes, as soon as like we met, she goes, oh, I friend zoned her right away. Like, I'm like, we went out. I'm like, I actually met her. I told her the entire Eve story. Everything I just told you, I told this girl, and worse. And because I was like angry, I was still like, don't forget, I was still working.
You were broken.
I've been through a lot in the last year.
No, you were broken. And that just proves my
Yeah.
point once again. Like you
Yeah.
can't really see somebody for who they are when you're broken, because you want to believe the best in who they are, because that's what you're looking for, is someone to fill that void of that relationship that you're missing. And you'll find it in all the wrong places when you're not a whole person yet. Yeah.
Yes.
That was a very bad situation to end up in right after a breakup.
Long story short, I do wind up seeing Eve again, because now that I continue hanging out with this other girl, because I'm like, could this work? Like, I don't know. And then Eve comes back into the picture because she knows I'm hanging out with this girl. Things happen, and then she like abruptly ends it. And my friend goes, you need to go on Hinge. She's like, forget Eve. Eve's dead. Go on Hinge. So I go on Hinge, and who do you think I wind up meeting?
Eve again?
I did see. That's hilarious that you said that. Eve was one of the first people that popped up, and I messaged her through the app saying, will I ever escape you?
Oh my God. What did she ever respond?
Nothing. So, I mean, we had like hooked up, things had happened.
Yeah.
And so
there's a circuit in those dating apps.
There is a thing.
If you're on one, you're on all of them usually.
I wind up, so a woman or a chick, she's like younger, who I wind up going out with like the next week. Like there's a bit of like back and forth. We make a plan, and I just had a feeling. I have very strong intuition. And I was like, no, certain things in the profile seemed familiar. Now, when I went on that second date with Eve, when she was telling me how she was seeing this woman, I made her show me her profile.
No.
I was like, who is this chick? I was like, where does she look like? I was trying to like, how is this person better than me?
So it was her.
So I wound up meeting the chick that Eve went away with. Can you believe that?
Yes.
Yes.
I can totally believe it. 100%, because these dating apps that's what they're designed to do, is like create a community of people that go from one to the other to keep you guys swiping. And it creates so much dysfunction. Like, see, the thing is, if you meet somebody doing something that you enjoy, then organically you're going to meet somebody that you have something in common with. I guess the pandemic really set everything up so that people didn't have those places to go to anymore. The gym, the grocery store.
Do you think that pandemic relationships will last long term?
I don't know. I mean, you like think about it.
People who wound up like spending a lot more time together, or moving in together because of the pandemic. Now all of a sudden they're in a serious relationship. And now they're like bonded or whatever. It's like they went through this thing with this person. Do you think that that is set up to work in the real world?
I think it depends on the people, honestly. I mean, I think the biggest adjustment is going to be when everybody has to go back to work. It's kind of like meeting somebody when you're on vacation and you can focus on them 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. And now you have to go back to your normal life. And there's always some adjustment that happens. So it depends on the people, I would say. But I mean, spending that long, if you're talking like people who got together at the beginning of the pandemic and saw it through the whole way, I think they actually have a fighting chance, because to be around somebody that much, it would drive me absolutely insane. I need a lot of space. Like I need my own time. So I always felt bad for people, especially people who had kids who were like trapped at home with their kids and their spouses, and they had nowhere to go to escape. Like I always felt really bad for them. And it made me feel very lucky that, I spent the whole time single and with my dog. But I don't know. I mean, that's why you have to choose wisely, right? Like that's what this is all about, is that you try to find somebody when you're a whole, complete, healed, happy person who loves your life 100,000% and could, if you had to, be alone the rest of your life and be totally okay with it. I think when you're in that place in your life, you're actually more ready to meet the right person and attract the right person who can see that you don't need them, that you're not codependent on them. And, hopefully they're not codependent. I just think that that's like the key to everything. And these dating apps are just not set up for people who are healthy and whole. Like even I was on all of them because I had just gone through a horrible divorce and I moved to a new place and I was alone. And I mean, I was serial dating. I was like going out with, a lot of people, and I just couldn't seem to find the right connection. Like I could tell that they were flaky or players. You meet a lot of those. And that's why I eventually was just like, this is ridiculous. I'm not meeting good quality people. I'm wasting so much of my time swiping. I talked about how I wake up in the morning and I would just reach over in the morning, grab my phone and just start swiping. And next thing you know, it's like noon and I'd be like, I have so many things I need to do today. And then you feel dirty. Like there's something about being on your phone for that many hours or your computer for that many hours. Like it's been proven that it causes depression. And, during the pandemic was a really bad time to be on your computer that much. It just made things worse. Okay. So I threw out to the world out there, like send me stories, audio files about your dating situations. And I got these 2 emails. See, one was from his name is Aka Quacka. I'm pretty sure that's not his real name, but he sent me an audio file. This is pretty creepy stuff. And I think this is a good setup actually for a good discussion about safe way. If you insist on using these dating apps and that is going to be your choice of how you meet people, there are certain safety precautions you should take to ensure that you don't get yourself in any precarious situations. I think number one, never, ever, ever let anyone know where you live. The first date, you should meet somebody in a neutral location. You drive, they drive, you take an Uber or whatever, if you're going to drink. But don't ever let anyone know where you live. I would say 3 to 4 dates into it. And that's only if you feel 100% okay with that. That is such a big rule of thumb for me. I would never let anyone know where I lived. And another, well, let's listen to this audio file. This is so crazy.
Regarding dating apps, when I was maybe 15 or 16, there was this app, which was essentially just a dating app for teenagers, but was marketed as an app to make friends, because otherwise that would be insane. It was insane.
Teenagers.
And as a young gay child, there was not a lot of options where I lived. So I turned to the internet and matched with this guy, and I was talking to him for a while, and we moved on to another app. And we would talk, and he was, he seemed nice, but he would never send me a picture of his face other than the ones that were already on his profile. And I was naive, but I was not stupid. So it got to a point, I was just like, look, why are you not sending me any pictures of your face? Like, it's just a bit suspicious. And he said, okay, well, I can send you a picture if you want, but just be warned, like, it's not a good day today. And it must have been a really awful day because he was a middle-aged man.
Yeah. So there's a lot to unpack there.
Wow.
First of all, what are these apps that are being created for teenagers to make friends? That seems to me a little questionable in itself. I didn't
Wow.
even know that those existed.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's the other thing too, is that these apps allow people to post fake profiles, post pictures, the whole catfish thing. Like, we've all heard the horror stories, but the fact that this was obviously a pedophile looking on these apps to find teenage kids, like, I'm just appalled that there's even an app that does that. But
That's crazy. Wow. And this guy sent it into you.
yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
Wow.
I love his accent.
Yeah.
Quacka. But I think it's a good reminder of the fact that you don't know who's on the other end of that thing. And, a friend of mine showed me his matches that he had for a day. And I was so curious. I was like, let me see what's going on out there for men. Like, what do the women look like? And what's the deal there? He showed me a match that he made. This woman sent him just a simple text like, hey, good morning. And I said, let me see her profile. And the profile shot was like a flower. And there was only one other picture in there. And it looked like it was straight out of a magazine perfume ad, right? Like, it was perfect lighting. And she wasn't even looking at the camera. She was like staring off in the distance. Like, it looked like something in an ad. And I told him, I was like, catfish. That's a total catfish. He was like, really? You think so? Yeah. So, I mean, that's the thing. You just have to be very careful, and you have to be very careful what you share with those people that you don't know. Like, you don't know those people. It's so scary. So that is a great intro to the next one that was sent in to me. This one is just...
Hi, Jerri. My name is Nick. I am a kind of follower of yours and just kind of see what you're up to. And I noticed that you're doing this podcast lately, which is awesome. And I've been following it and listened to your most recent one covering, dating during a pandemic and specifically using dating apps. And I actually had probably the craziest and scariest night of my life, literally last night, using a dating app. And this happened after I'd watched your podcast. I'd already been using them, but given that I had watched your podcast and you were looking for kind of interesting stories, this one is interesting and honestly like a cautionary tale, really, and just like a reminder that you don't really know who you're talking to on these apps. And long story short, it basically turned into this person getting access to some risque photos of myself and then threatening to send those photos to people I cared about if I didn't give him money. That's like the intro of the story, basically, and it was insane. Happy to kind of talk about it in more detail if you'd like. Feel free to kind of reach out, but I think it is actually important to kind of shed a light and remind people that you don't really know who you're talking to, and so it's just important to have to balance the thrill of the swiping and the matching with the reality that you don't know who you're talking to. So yeah, hope to be in touch and feel free to reach out if you'd like.
So
I have a lot of questions for him.
I think clearly what obviously happened is somebody gained his trust enough to have him send nude pictures of himself to them. That's the only way you can gain access to risque photos of somebody.
But then how would that person have access to his family member? Yeah.
Maybe just going on Facebook and looking it all up. I mean, this whole thing with people sending nude pictures to each other or even posting, below the waist pictures on these dating apps. I just think that I know kids don't get it. Like, you put something on the internet, it's there and it's going to be there forever. And you may think that you take it down, but somebody already screen grabbed it and posted it somewhere else, or, you just never know. And so sending naked pictures to someone who, I mean, I don't know. I didn't get back in touch with him to find out if he had actually met this person in real life or what the deal was, but just don't send naked pictures to someone you don't know. Like, that is ridiculous. And even when it's someone you do know, I would say wait a year before you actually put your face in there. Just take pictures of your body without your face in it.
I mean, it just sounds like, so he met this person one time and then was doing that. And then because he said that he went on the one date like the night before.
That's right,
This
he
seems
did
like
say
an
that.
accelerated timeline to be doing that.
It is.
But that's also, and also we don't really know. Like I said, I have questions.
Yeah. Well, I think the main takeaway of that is that's way too soon to be sending naked pictures to somebody. And, take this as a precautionary tale.
Yeah.
Know that that's exactly what some people are doing. I can't imagine being blackmailed. I mean, I've been in Playboy, so everybody's already seen me naked. Like, good luck trying to blackmail me. And there's like, what are you going to show them? Something they already saw? I'm not scared, and I'm never going to send someone naked pictures with my face in them unless I have known them for a very, very long time. And even then I worry, like, who can you really trust nowadays?
Nobody.
Sadly. Yeah. Very few people. There are a lot of not good people out there, but I try to focus on finding the good people in my life. And I think as I've gotten older, I've also realized that I'm very specific about who I spend my time with. So if I don't particularly like somebody's company for whatever reason, like there's just some kind of a dynamic that is abrasive or negative, it makes me feel icky inside. I just don't, why would I waste any more time spending time with them? You know what I mean? And I just know too many people who, I don't know, they just feel like they have to spend extra time with that person to try to convince them to like them. And it's just, that's a narcissistic situation that's just being set up. Choose your friends wisely. Life is short. Don't send naked pictures to people you don't know. And I'm sorry that happened to you. And I'm sorry that happened to the other person too. Like this, it's scary out there. So I actually do have a dating app nightmare story. So this is also a cautionary tale. When you do go on your first date with somebody, make sure that you drive your car to the location that the date is going to happen, so that when it is over, or if it goes horribly wrong, you can just jump in your car and leave. So
wait, what happened?
I matched with this guy. He was down in like Tiburon, and we decided we were going to take the ferry into the city and then like tool around, have dinner, and then take a cab back to his place where my car was at. And I knew when I agreed to do that it was setting myself up to not be able to escape quickly if I needed to. But I don't know. I just felt like we had a good connection, and it would be okay.
This was a first date?
This was a first date.
Okay.
So we get on the ferry and get into San Francisco, and I could tell immediately this was not going to work. Like, he spent the whole time at the bar of this restaurant talking to random strangers about his business, and he was a dog walker, and he was trying to get, I don't know, them to refer people who needed a dog walker. And I'm just like, hey, I'm right here. We're on a date. Like, this is weird. Like, I immediately was just like, what have I done? Like, I can't escape. And then he takes me to some bar, and there's a bunch of like 20-year-olds throwing up in the bathroom. And like, it was just like, I was like, I just am too old for this shit. Get me out of here. But I will say he was nice enough to pay for the cab to get me back to my truck to get home. But I was reminded very quickly, like, don't do that to yourself. Like, on your first date, drive your car in a place where you can easily jump in it and go home if you need to escape. It's very important.
So how long was this time commitment that you made?
What do you mean, for the date?
Yeah.
It was a whole day.
Okay. So that was your first problem. That was your first mistake.
I realized that.
A first date should be like drinks, and then if it's going well, the time commitment should just be for drinks, or the amount that amount of time, drinks or coffee. And if it's going well,
dates. To me, coffee dates are non-committal.
No, I'm just saying, like, if somebody doesn't drink, like, whatever, it should be like the length of like a drinks. And then if it's that way, you can leave after an hour or an hour and 15 minutes if it's not anything. And but if you're having a great time, then of course you can like turn it and you can go someplace else, you can have dinner or whatever. So I think committing to a whole day with somebody that you don't know,
it was stupid. It was stupid. But I also think that with the way that you handle the dating apps, which is, you said you move very quickly, like you just want to meet them as soon as you possibly can. Whereas my method was texting for a while, then the phone number, then meeting in person. So like there was more time spent with the person in conversation that gave me some level of confidence to agree to a whole day of adventure.
See, the reason for, let me contextualize this a little bit. My reason for that is, okay, suppose you're at the end of the day, what matters is the in-person. You can have amazing, like texting with somebody, text with somebody for 3 days straight, and then you get in front of them and you're not into them, like it's awkward, or you're not attracted to them. Well, you basically have just been chatting with like a chat bot. Like you don't, like, it's like, I want to cut, like, let's see what the real thing is. Let's get to it.
I totally agree. And
that's
believe me,
that's why.
If I were to go back on the dating apps, which, dear Lord, please, for the love of God, I don't ever want to be in that situation again. I just don't. I think that is probably the smarter way to go about it, is just meet the person as soon as you possibly can. I think it's a little bit different too when you're meeting men as opposed to meeting women, because men can be a little bit more aggressive and a little bit scary sometimes in person. Like I try to figure out like what their demeanor is by asking a lot of questions about their past relationships and things like that.
I understand.
Yeah, it can be a little scary.
Yeah.
I've seen way too many movies about abductions. Like,
oh my
God. I'm seriously like, I'm so paranoid. Like I live in the middle of nowhere and I still lock all my doors. Like, I lock my truck, even though it's sitting like right outside my kitchen door. Like, and I live literally in the middle of nowhere. So that's my whole mentality on life, is all about safety. I got deadbolts on the doors, in wine country, in a town of 300 people. So yeah, I'm definitely more leery of people, especially especially if you're going to be going to a bar and having cocktails, because now you're talking about all kinds of other things. Like women have been drugged, we know all the stories. Like it's just, I don't know. But so here's another question too about traveling when you're on the dating app. So I know that it opens up your circles to find people outside of your normal living state.
Yes. What I've found is it like geo tags you or something, and then all of a sudden you're dating in San Francisco when like you're not
you
trying
don't
to
live there.
Yeah, you're there for like a short period of time. So that's what we were playing around with. I was like, well, here are these people in this area. But
I know there's a lot of cute girls on there that I've never even seen around here before. I was like, oh, so there is a pool of women here for you to date. So you should definitely come back and visit me.
Oh my God.
I mean, I can't you like go into them now and put in a different zip code and like look ahead of where you're traveling to? I think you can.
I think there is that feature on Bumble. It's like you're in travel mode and it buffers your time.
So you can look ahead in time to where you're going to be to see if there's anybody there you can go on a date with while you're on your business trip. Which is, again, like this whole thing is set up for people to have affairs and like be shady. Like it's just yuck. I'm glad that restaurants have opened back up. People are sitting back at bars now. It's still not completely normal out there, but at least at least those options are opening back up for people who are single. And like I said, I found somebody recently, and I'm really just enjoying the fact that, you know, all the relationship stuff, which has its own, oh man, that has its own challenges, just being in a relationship after not being in one for a very long time. So I think that's a whole nother separate podcast. Well, gosh, I think we've touched everything that I had on my list.
Yeah.
And thank you so much for joining me today, Jess, honestly. And thank you for all your help, helping me get this thing going.
Of course. Thank you.
Hitting the ground running has been my metaphor for almost everything I've done my whole life. But yeah, I know you're busy out there, and you've got your podcast now to edit, and I cannot wait to listen to the Isaac Mizrahi one. And anybody who hasn't listened to Hot Takes and Deep Dives, go back. There's so many great episodes in there. And I love the Rosie O'Donnell interview. Wow, there was so much juice in there.
Yeah.
And I hope that you are
and if
prepared.
you like, if you're a fan of like Bravo, there's a ton of there's a lot of juicy like Bravo stuff in there too.
So much. Yeah.
If you speak the language, you will appreciate what's there.
Do you ever talk about, you've never really talked about Below Deck too much.
I don't watch it. Although I interviewed, I don't really watch it, but I did do you know Colin Macy O'Toole? He was on 2 seasons of Below Deck Med.
I don't know. That doesn't sound
He's
familiar.
A cute guy, young.
I don't know. I mean, I'm in the middle of watching all the old episodes of the Med because I didn't watch it from the beginning. So I'll figure out who he is.
You'll figure out who he is. I did interview him, and he's great.
Should watch Below Deck. I'm still like
I would. You would stop
rewatching the Housewives over and over. Go.
No, I'm actually a little bit over the house. I only rewatch New York.
Yeah,
it's Emmy worthy.
Well, I hope you're ready to be a huge celebrity because with all these great interviews you do, you're so good at it. And I listen to all your stuff, and it's inspirational.
Thank you.
It is. Thank you. I want to get good at this like you are.
You're great. You're great.
Oh, thank you. That's very sweet.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. Well, thank you for tuning in again, and listen to Hot Takes and Deep Dives, one of my favorite podcasts of all time. And we'll see you soon. We got so many things to talk about. And send me some more audio files about stories from dating apps, or maybe relationship advice or relationship issues. We're going to dig into all that stuff here on my podcast. It's very organic. And as things come in, I'm more than happy to give my wisdom and advice based on personal experience, of course. So everyone out there, I hope you guys are staying healthy and taking care of yourself and each other. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Jerri Manthey. Feel free to send me audio files or videos if that works for you best at thejerrimanthey@gmail.com. I'd love to hear from you guys and have the opportunity to hear your stories and give you some advice, or maybe just give a listen to what's going on out there. Thank you very much for tuning in to Hit the Ground Running with Jerri Manthey. In order to thrive, not just survive, you have to hit the ground running. Rocky. Oh, man.